How's it going, everyone? Austin Honecker here. I just want to come on here for a while and give my review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage from tonight, which is September 2nd, 2022. I gotta say, it was awesome from start to finish. For the matches, match 1, it was Hangman Page and the Dark Order, which are John Silver and Alex Reynolds, versus Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends, which are Trent Beretta and Chuck Taylor, in an AEW Trios Titles semifinal match. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Hangman Page and the Dark Order went over cause John Silver pinned Chuck Taylor with a schoolboy. So, Hangman Page and the Dark Order advanced in the AEW Trios Titles tournament. Match 2, it was Rey Fenix versus Blake Christian. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Rey Fenix went over with the Phoenix Driver. Match 3, it was Ortiz and Ruby Soho versus Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Ortiz and Ruby Soho went over cause Ruby Soho pinned Ty Mello with a roll-up. And match 4, which was the main event, it was Ricky Starks versus QT Marshall. That was a great match, but the ending to it, Ricky Starks went over with the Rochambeau. Now, after the match, as Ricky Starks was celebrating his victory, Powerhouse Hobbs came out and ran down to the ring, and a brawl ensued between Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, beating the shit out of each other. And all the referees came out to break it up, to try to break it up and everything. And as the brawl between Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs was going on, Bryan Danielson came out, and a confrontation between Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson ensued and everything as well. That was cool. That was after the match, by the way, and that was match 4 in the main event, by the way. Now, besides the matches, Eddie Kingston cut a promo talking about how the last time him and Tomohiro Ishii faced off in New Japan Pro Wrestling, Tomohiro Ishii came out the better man, but this time Eddie Kingston himself is gonna beat Tomohiro Ishii and everything. That was cool. Lexi Nair interviewed Hook. Well, Lexi Nair brought up about Hook defending the FTW title against Angelo Parker at All Out and everything, and before Hook could get ready to talk, the Jericho Appreciation Society, which are Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, came along and interrupted Hook, and Angelo Parker was talking shit towards Hook and everything, and Matt Menard talked about, and as Angelo Parker was talking shit to Hook, Hook was getting ready to attack both Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, but Matt Menard said, whoa, 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 whoa. Settle down, Hook. Let's wait till Sunday when you defend your FTW title against my boy Cool Hand Angelo Parker and everything. And Angelo Parker was talking shit towards Hook, saying how he was going to beat Hook and become the FTW champion and everything. But then the Jericho Appreciation Society, which are Matt Menard and Angelo Parker, left, and Lexi Nair was trying to get a word in from Hook as well, but Hook ended up leaving, and Lexi Nair was looking on and everything. That was cool. Lexi Nair interviewed Hangman Page and the Dark Order, which are John Silver and Alex Reynolds. Well, Lexi Nair brought up about Hangman Page and the Dark Order getting a victory against Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends tonight on Rampage, and talked about how they were going to be facing the Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson at All Out for the AEW Trios titles and everything. And before Hangman Page could get the chance to talk, Don Callis interrupted Hangman Page, and Don Callis was talking about how he was proud of Hangman Page and how the Young Bucks offered him a spot to team with them in the tournament, but he betrayed them and turned them down and everything, and then talked about how Sunday Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks were going to beat the shit out of... We're going to beat Hangman Page and the Dark Order and become the AEW Trios champions and everything. And then Don Callis left, and Hangman Page and then Hangman Page and the Dark Order were looking on and everything. That was cool. Excuse me. Sorry. Mark Henry interviewed Jade Cargill and Athena. Well, Mark Henry brought up about Jade Cargill defending the TBS Women's title against Athena at AEW's pay-per-view event All Out and everything, and then Jade Cargill was talking about how Athena's a waste of her time and how she's going to beat Athena at All Out and everything, and then Athena got all pissed off and was talking about how Jade Cargill has been nothing but disrespectful towards all the women in AEW and everything, and talked about how she was not only going to beat Jade Cargill and win the TBS Women's title in honor for herself, but also in honor of all the women that Jade Cargill has disrespected and everything. And then Athena and Jade Cargill were mouthing off and everything, and so Athena left, and Jade Cargill, along with the baddies, which are Kiera Hogan and Layla Gray, were looking on, and as was Mark Henry and everything. That was cool. AEW aired a vignette of the build-up of the match between Jon Moxley versus CM Punk for the AEW title at All Out and everything. That was cool. Tony Schiavone interviewed Swerve and Our Glory, which are Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, and the Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, along with Billy Gunn. Well, Tony Schiavone brought up about Swerve and Our Glory defending the AEW Tag Team titles against the Acclaimed at All Out and everything. And then Billy Gunn was talking about how he had no doubts that Swerve and Our Glory were a great tag team and everything, and talked about how the Acclaimed were going to kick Swerve and Our Glory's ass and take the AEW tag team titles and everything. And then Max Caster was talking about how him and Anthony Bowens are going to finally be the AEW tag team champions and everything, and beat Swerve and Our Glory to take the AEW tag team titles and everything as well. And Anthony Bowens was talking about how Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland look like Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King, and talked about how him and Max Caster, after 3 years of being in AEW, are going to finally be the AEW Tag Team Champs, and they're going to beat Swerve and Our Glory by doing so, and everything. And then Keith Lee was talking about how, well, Keith Lee was saying, well, boys, in 48 hours, you're on. And then Swerve Strickland was saying, you know, it's starting to piss me off here because you both are nothing but all about jokes and all about raps. How about you put your jokes aside and you put your raps aside and be serious? Because Sunday night at All Out, Keith Lee and I, we're going to kick both your punk asses, and we're going to keep our AEW tag team titles and everything. Just cool. Wardlow and FTR, which are Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, came out to the ring, and Dax Harwood cut a promo talking about how professional wrestling is his life and how his family are his life, and talked about and was getting emotional and everything, and then as Dax Harwood was talking, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and Satnam Singh, along with the Motor City Machine Guns, which are Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, came out, and Chris Sabin was talking about how him and Alex Shelley are the best tag team in the world, and talked about how them and Jay Lethal were going to beat Wardlow and FTR at All Out and everything, and talked about how him and Alex Shelley are from the great city of Detroit, Michigan, and everything. And then Alex Shelley got on the microphone and was talking about how he was Alex Shelley was talking about how when him and Kip Sabian walked in the AEW locker room, the whole AEW roster stood up in respect to them, and talked about how they're going to teach FTR a lesson, and talked about how him, Chris Sabin, and Jay Lethal were going to beat Wardlow and FTR and everything, and then Sanjay Dutt got on the microphone and talked about how him, Jay Lethal, Chris Sabin, and Alex Shelley have known each other for years, and talked about how Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns were going to come out dominant at All Out and everything. And then Sanjay Dutt was talking about how Dax Harwood, how he was going to fight Dax Harwood like Dax Harwood's 8-year-old daughter, but called her a brat and everything. And so Dax Harwood got pissed off and was heading out of the ring, and so Wardlow and Cash Wheeler were holding Dax Harwood back and everything. And then Sanjay Dutt was talking about how he struck a nerve in Dax Harwood, and then talked about how he was going to fight Dax Harwood, but better yet, he was going to sick the 7'4" Satnam Singh on Dax Harwood and everything as well. Just cool. And Mark Henry interviewed QT Marshall and Ricky Starks. And Mark Henry interviewed Ricky Starks and QT Marshall. Well, Mark Henry brought up about Ricky Starks and QT Marshall facing off in the main event of Rampage and everything. And then before Mark Henry could get to a question for QT Marshall was talking about how tonight he doesn't have the factory with him because he's going at it on his own, and talked about how he promised Powerhouse Hobbs he was going to beat Ricky Starks and everything. And then Ricky Starks was talking about how QT Marshall was a pussy and how he couldn't fight his own battles without the factory and everything. And then Ricky Starks told QT Marshall to follow him because he had a surprise for him. So Ricky Starks went by the factory's locker room with the other members of the factory, which are Aaron Solo, Nick Camarado, Anthony Ogogo, and Cole Carter, trapped into their locker room and everything. And then Mark Henry said, QT Marshall went over to, walked off the interview set, and Mark Henry said his signature line, "Well, looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event," and everything. And then as QT Marshall was trying to check on the factory at the locker room, Ricky Starks came from behind on QT Marshall and attacked him, and then a brawl between Ricky Starks and QT Marshall ensued backstage and in the ring before the match started and everything. That was cool. Now, besides all that, Jim Ross, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, and Chris Jericho. Excuse me. Now, besides all that, Jim Ross, Chris Jericho, and Excalibur done commentary throughout the whole show. They done awesome as usual. Tony Schiavone done commentary along with Jim Ross, Chris Jericho, and Excalibur throughout the whole show, all but the match between Hangman Page and the Dark Order versus Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends in an AEW Trios titles semifinal match. Tony Schiavone done awesome as usual, and Don Callis done guest commentary along with Jim Ross, Chris Jericho, and Excalibur throughout the match between Hangman Page and the Dark Order versus Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends in an AEW Trios titles semifinal match. Don Callis done great on guest commentary. Now, and the referees for the event were Rick Knox, Paul Turner, Bryce Remsburg, and Stephon Smith. Okay. Bryce Remsburg refereed the match between Hangman Page and the Dark Order versus Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends in an AEW Trios titles semifinal match. Stephon Smith refereed the match between Ray Phoenix versus Blake Christian. Rick Knox refereed the match between Ortiz and Ruby Soho versus Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello. And Paul Turner refereed the match between Ricky Starks versus QT Marshall. All the referees done awesome as usual. Now, the match card for All Elite Wrestling's And now, the match card for All Elite Wrestling's pay-per-view event, All Out, Sunday night. There's the pre-show, and there's the main show. For the pre-show, it's going to be Pac versus Kip Sabian for the AEW All-Atlantic title. Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello versus Ortiz and Ruby Soho for the AAA Mixed Tag Team titles. Hook versus Angelo Parker for the FTW title, and Eddie Kingston versus Tomohiro Ishii. So the match card for the pre-show looks like it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see it. Looking forward to it. And the match card for the main show, it's going to be Jon Moxley versus CM Punk for the AEW title. Swerve and Our Glory, which are Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland versus The Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens for the AEW Tag Team titles. The Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson versus Hangman Page and the Dark Order, which are John Silver and Alex Reynolds for the AEW Trios titles. Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida versus Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm in a four-way match for the interim AEW Women's title. Jade Cargill versus Athena for the TBS Women's title. Sting, Miro, and Darby Allin versus the House of Black, which are Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy. Ricky Starks versus Powerhouse Hobbs. And a casino ladder match to determine the number one contender for the AEW title. The contestants in the AEW in the casino ladder match are Claudio Castagnoli, Rey Fenix, Pena El Cerro Miedo, Andrade El Idolo, Dante Martin, Roosh, and a mystery opponent. And also, another match I forgot on the match card. Jay Lethal. Excuse me. Let me do this. Excuse me. Let me redo this. So the match card. Excuse me. And the match card for All Elite Wrestling's pay-per-view event, All Out, Sunday night. There's the pre-show and the main show. For the pre-show, it's going to be Pac versus Kip Sabian for the AEW All-Atlantic title. Sammy Guevara and Ty Mello versus Ortiz and Ruby Soho for the AAA Mixed Tag Team titles. Hook versus Angelo Parker for the FTW title. And Eddie Kingston versus Tomohiro Ishii. That's for the pre-show. And for the main show, it's going to be Jon Moxley versus CM Punk for the AEW title. Swerve and Our Glory, which are Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland versus The Acclaimed, which are Max Caster and Anthony Bowens for the AEW Tag Team titles. The Elite, which are Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson versus Hangman Page and the Dark Order, which are John Silver and Alex Reynolds for the AEW Trios titles. Britt Baker versus Hikaru Shida versus Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm in a four-way match for the interim AEW Women's title. Jade Cargill versus Athena for the TBS Women's title. Sting, Miro, and Darby Allin versus the House of Black, which are Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews. Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy. Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns, which are Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, versus Wardlow and FTR, which are Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. Ricky Starks versus Powerhouse Hobbs, and a casino ladder match to determine the number one contender for the AEW title sometime down the road. And the contestants for the match are Claudio Castagnoli, Rey Fenix, Pena El Cerro Miedo, Andrade El Idolo, Dante Martin, Wheeler Yuta, Roosh, and a mystery opponent. So the match card for both the pre-show and the main show of All Elite Wrestling's pay-per-view event, All Out, looks like it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it, and I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here for a while and give them a review for All Elite Wrestling's AEW Rampage from tonight, which is September 2nd, 2022. Like I said, it was awesome. It was awesome from start to finish. And with that being said, my name is Austin Honecker, and I will catch your ass down the road. Peace out.